On August 30th, 1993, near the small town of Ogama in northern Wisconsin, a tragic drama unfolds. Two young boys, Robert and Benjamin Moore, leave their shoes and books behind for one last joyride before the end of their summer vacation, an escape they would never return from. The mystery of what could have driven these boys to kill themselves is still unsolved. Or is it possible that they were murdered? Roberta Moore is haunted by the memory of that fateful day. The facts of the case don't add up. After 8 years, she still has no clear answers as to why her sons would commit such an unthinkable act. Did foul play lead to murder? Her search for the facts reveal many disturbing clues as she recalls the events of what happened.
Robert and Ben were very unhappy about having to go to the Kingdom Hall, so their father had to figure out a way to bribe them to go. So he bought them a brand new motorcycle. And the deal was that if they'd go to the Kingdom Hall 2 meetings a week for 3 years, then he'd buy them the motorcycle. Well, the boys were just really ecstatic about that. And I told them, don't do it, it's just not worth it. But they wouldn't listen to me. They went ahead and said, yeah, we'll go. And so he bought the motorcycle, and they were happy for quite a long time, ripping around and playing. When I noticed the boys were missing, I could see that John was standing in the background in the field, just standing there, looking around. And I wondered how come he was just standing there, because obviously the boys weren't there. And then he came up to me and said, well, the car is gone. And then when he said the car was gone, then I knew it was a rainy day, so I just figured, well, of course there'd be tracks. And sure enough, there were tracks. The tracks led out on the road and down to the trail. I followed the tracks down to the trail and then came back and got him. And he took Lisa and I in his truck and drove down to the beginning of the trail. He left Lisa and I at the beginning of the trail, and he walked in himself. Well, I didn't know whether to go around to the other entrance, which was located down in the town of Ogama, or what to do. He left the keys in the truck. So I just waited for a while, and then I wondered what was going on. So I thought I should go take a look. So I walked maybe 1 or 2 telephone pole lengths in there, and I didn't see anything. And then I heard a shot. And then I got worried, so I hurried back to the truck. And I drove in, and as I was driving in, I could see him coming out when I had drove in away. Now the place where they were located was about 3/4 of a mile from the road. And he was coming out, and he had a really strange expression on his face. He must have been in shock. And Lisa noticed later on that he was crying, but he had no tears. And so I asked him, well, what happened and where's the boys? And he said that they killed themselves and that the gun was there. And well, I just kind of went into shock, you might say. Or I had a really hard time dealing with it for a long time. And then we went back to the house, and I called up the 911, and I couldn't remember the number to call. So it took a while till I could call, and I told the 911 people that he had discovered the bodies of the boys and that they were dead. And at that time it was 8:25. And then I went upstairs into their room. Because I thought it was suicide, I thought I'd look and see if they left any kind of a note or something. And that's when I found that picture of that safe among some other things that Robert had drawn up in his room. And I went through all his stuff and looked carefully, and we never found anything other than that there. I wondered what it was for a long time, but it was a picture of a big tall building, and on this building there was a safe. And this safe fell off this building and crushed somebody. And underneath the safe, there's a body that's crushed, and you can see that he made blood. And then from the body, there's a happy spirit rising. And on the top of the picture, it says, "Ha, ha, ha." So Robert says, if you're already dead, then you're safe. In the Watchtower magazine, it was 1993, they had an article about Pompeii. And on the cover, there's a picture of a clock, and it's about 14 minutes before 12. And 12 o'clock is midnight or doomsday, and that's when the world is supposed to end. And so if you delay getting into Jehovah's organization and Armageddon comes, then you'll be like these people in Pompeii. And in this article, he had a map, and it looked an awful lot like of the exact location where the two boys died. And in the map, it goes from Route 13, and then it goes up to Spring Road, and then where the trail goes in, and then there's a little part that says end, and it shows a picture of something. I'm not sure what that picture is. And then, if you look really closely, you'll see where it says me. And in the me, there's the kind of a picture of a car. And right behind the car is a dead body. And then the body is asleep, like the Watchtower people were taught. When you die, you sleep. This guy, James something or other from the Milwaukee Sentinel, I got his name somewhere, told me to look in the kids' Watchtower literature. So this must have happened before. So I looked, and I found all these things. And they included magazines and this Revelation book that said all these awful things, and how the only way you could be saved was to be in that Jehovah's Witness organization, and if you weren't, then you'd be destroyed forever. And sure enough, and I looked at them, and then we looked through the Bible too that they had. And well, Ronald found something very interesting in there, where it said, "Why live by Bible standards?" And Ben had his name put up there. And then another map of what looked like the trail that said end on it. And well, we wondered, and the police came, and well, I should have gone back. The police didn't come till about 5 o'clock that night. So a lot of time had gone by since after the boys had died till the police finally came and talked to us. And when Mike Roberts came, he took both John's and I's hands, did some kind of a test to see if there was gunshot residue on our hands. And then he questioned us, and well, we told him how it was. And he said, "Well, why were the boys' feet all roughed up?" And I said, well, I couldn't understand why that would be, because if they had ran out of the house, the only place that they could have run would be in the soft driveway where it was dirt, and it wasn't really, you couldn't hurt your feet by running there. And so that I didn't understand.
The boys' feet were all roughed up?
Yes, like they had been running, or somebody chasing them. And so at the time I didn't understand that. So anyway, there was a lot of things that I still don't understand. The Watchtower is a real messenger of death. Death is hidden in a lot of their subliminals, and that is the main thing they talk about. And if a person dies before this great battle of Armageddon, he's guaranteed to live in paradise. Only Jehovah's Witness. That's the only way you can get in there, is you have to be a Jehovah's Witness, because everybody else is of Satan the devil.
But they might have thought from the Jehovah's Witness preaching that if they if they did kill themselves or something, they're going to end up in the new world anyway, because they preached real heavy on that everybody that's dead and gone already is going to for sure go to the new world. As a child, and you probably just think, well, I don't like living this life, it's too much of a pain right now, and I might have thought, let's just get out of here and we'll end up in the new world with all the flowers and fruit all over the place and animals to pet, and we don't have to deal with this anymore.
Oh, there was terrible pictures in there. Blood up to the horses' necks, and then a great big description about how the earth would be cleaned up of all these ungodly people.
I don't know, something must have got them the wrong way. It's just hard to really believe two young boys could just go out and do something like that, unless there was something really heavily pushing them.
And the instinctive thing that comes to mind is who killed them. I grew up in a very, if you will, tough neighborhood. And as tough as things were, the concept of suicide or whatever between my brothers never entered our mind. Running away, yeah.
Yeah.
But, suicide, no. So the minute I heard that, instinctively, gut feeling all the way around is they were murdered. For one reason or other.
No, when I was that young, I never thought of anything that drastic.
Whether they were capable or knew how to load and unload it necessarily or not, I don't know. There's an awful lot of family members that have pieces of information that should have been interviewed to follow up on it. I don't know what it takes to get a follow-up on, I don't know.
And then when we finally did get the police report, it said that there were no prints on the gun. And the police had confiscated the steering wheel and 2 empty shot rifle calibers, or whatever you call them. And the boys had used 22 long rifle shells, and the gun was a real old-time gun, and it used 22 short rifle shells. So a person would have to pry one bullet out before they could put another one in.
Well, even the complexity of the situation of how to make that gun work is amazing. You got a 22 rifle that doesn't work properly. It's a single shot. Each time it's shot, you got, it's a knife or something sharp object. You got to pry the old shell out and then manually put the new shell in and then use it. So there's a lot of time in between one person killing, one and one killing themselves.
It must have been awful hard to sit there and watch your own brother kill himself, and then just be able to do the same thing to yourself. Because one of them had to be sitting there watching if there wasn't anything else that went on. That's the way they say it happened, so.
And the leaves are, of course, wet, which means that they'd be on the ground. If there are leaves on the gun, then obviously they were put there by somebody. And the only reason I can imagine that you'd have leaves on the gun is if someone was trying to wipe the fingerprints off the gun. Which is amazing because there didn't appear to be any usable prints on the gun. Yet you have 2 boys that are laying there dead that, killed themselves. Why wouldn't there be usable prints on the gun? Unless they were wiped off by someone that didn't want his or her prints on the gun.
But my lawyer checked into it, and he found that there was smudge marks on the gun. And on the police report that I was given a copy of, it says that there was leaves on top of the gun. And as Robert and Benjamin were dead, my lawyer discovered that how could they possibly put the leaves on top of the gun? And so obviously somebody else had to be there. And for a long time, they never told me that there was a kitchen knife involved. And I just wondered and wondered, and I almost went crazy wondering what did they pry out those bullets with. And then finally, the last time they questioned John Moore and myself, then Mike Roberts told me that there was a kitchen knife involved.
I guess the thing that amazes me, it'd be one thing if it was, say, a semi-automatic or something where one could shoot the other one and then shoot himself right away without a lot of thinking, in a moment of, if you will, passion.
Yeah.
But imagine a gun that doesn't work,
Yeah.
loading it, you know, which
Yeah.
is always a trick because otherwise you drop the shell,
That's right.
and then shooting himself or having his brother shoot him,
Yeah.
and then going through all that trouble to unload it. By then the passion would long have since gone.
And the shock of seeing his
Brother
bleeding.
laying there bleeding while he's trying to unload the gun and load it, you know, again.
Yeah.
I mean, in my mind, I just can't conceive of that being suicide.
Yeah.
It doesn't fit.
Inside John's Kingdom Hall bag, I found a couple of pictures that the boys had made in the Kingdom Hall while they were listening to that awful stuff. And the pictures really showed that was a really mixed up mind, that it really showed torment and fear. And I imagine that's exactly how they felt, and hearing about how all these people, including their mother, is going to get killed in this great battle of Armageddon.
There was a lot of preaching of the end of the world, and always just a certain amount of people is going to go, and everybody else is going to burn in hell. And I know that had to have been hard for kids because they don't really know what's going on, but by their beliefs of their parents' beliefs, and so they got to go right along with that too.
Benjamin had made a picture of a robot, and each boy made pictures of himself, how he saw himself at that time. And they were very abstract, especially Robert's. And then Benjamin had a picture of himself smiling, and he is a very talented artist. He is really good in the detail. And he had a picture of him smiling and what he likes and what he doesn't like, and what he's going to be when he grows up, and what he did in the summer. And then he made another picture, which I still have in my bedroom, of himself smiling, and he's even got his glasses on. And this told me that school wasn't the reason at all, like their father had made me to believe and like I had told the media. But the media kept on bothering and calling, and I didn't know what to say because I didn't know at that time what was really behind it.
It's a blind obedience type religion, all right? And imagine a household like this. Imagine you're those two kids. Okay, you've got a mom who no longer belongs to the church, and she deplores it and don't want him to go. You got a dad, the patriarch of the family, who absolutely wants him to go. The kids themselves absolutely don't want to go, but they do go, and they're able to be bribed by getting a motorcycle. You know, I'll give you a motorcycle if you go for another year or whatever it is. Well, they want this motorcycle real bad, and well, I guess it's worth it. Well, after a few months, they realize it isn't even worth it for that. And you have a great deal of anger on the father's part. You know, his whole life and religion is at odds at one end, and you got the mother's freedom and this little bit of critical thinking coming in there at the other end. So you've got parents at odds with each other. You've got a religion that you go and study that talks about the end of the world, and that that death is a place to be saved. If you die before you leave the church, or while you're with the church, of course, you'll be saved. And that type of mentality is driving these boys. Did they commit suicide on their own, realistically? Or were they driven to it by the philosophies and religion that they were taught at church? Or was that religion taken, even a step further and was aided by the father? Or a combination? So, from a legal question, I'd look at it and say, who's really the fault here? Is this a liability issue against the church?
Yeah, well, I kind of suspected the Watchtower too, but I was kind of afraid to say anything about involving a big, powerful organization that had so much money. What chance would I have against someone like that?
But in reality, the reason for the deaths. You know, unless they can prove when they were chemical, you know, due to some, you know, biological reason, which there's no reason to believe that, was either caused by the church or by their teaching or by the father as a result of the church's teachings or something.
Then I saw the knife that was supposedly sent to the crime lab. Wayne Worsing had told me that the knife had gone to the crime lab so that they could see which boy was first. And there I found it in the car. And anyway, this Pat Knack has pictures of this. And the police officer that let us in, I'm sure he has pictures of this too that document this. And so I confronted Wayne Worsing. And the knife had a little crink on the end that it was used for that. And he admitted that yes, that was the knife that was used. And Mike Roberts had said the knife was about a foot away from the gun. And so, well, he lied. He had lied to me and told me that it went to the crime lab. And in the autopsy report, it didn't show that either. And I wondered why they didn't have the knife in there. And he said, well, because the knife had these, the design of the knife was so much so that the print couldn't be seen. So the knife had very bad memories for me, and so I just left it there in the police station in the wastebasket. And if the police were doing the correct thing, they should have taken that and put it in with the evidence.
And we've made contact with Roberta Moore about the Moore shootings back in 1993.
Okay.
We're just wondering whether we could possibly speak with Mike Roberts for a few minutes.
He's not here. He's on complaint right now,
I see.
and it's doubtful he'll be back anytime soon.
It's all right. So you don't know how long it's going to be?
No, it'll be a long time.
And Dick Heikemper?
He's down there also.
Oh, I see. Is he?
Yeah,
I
they're
see.
on something.
Yeah, okay. So you don't know when they'll be back?
No, I do not.
Are they on duty tonight?
No, I can take down your name and number and
Sure.
get him and get a hold of you.
I'm embarrassed for that police department. First of all, you know, it's a small town, and of course there's no real excuse in a small town, but you had people that know each other, and I think they were kind of in shock. They're not trained for this type of a situation. You know, they're called out there to a situation where there's 2 dead bodies. The parents are asked some basic questions, and then they're left alone. At the end of the day, you know, 10, 12 hours, they finally show up and say, well, maybe we ought to check and get some final statements from the parents, and then they decide, well, maybe we better check for gunpowder. Well, by that time, you know, they've changed shirts. John had plenty of time, the father, to clean up, wash any residue off, the whole works. There's so many details that were overlooked, not done at all, not checked out, not followed up, interviews with families that didn't follow up. I mean, for Christ's sake, there's 2 dead kids here. You know, we really need to ask some serious questions. You know, if not now, or when? Ever?
Is there a number where I could get a hold of them?
Right here.
Is that right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Just a second.
All right, thank you.
Just recently, in the last week's B, I see that the DA is quitting and that the sheriff is quitting too.
So, is this a documentary on it,
Yeah,
or just kind
right,
of family
right.
thing?
No, it's a documentary on it. Yeah, we're doing a number of cases in Canada and the States, actually.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, I said I'll leave it with them and
Sure.
let them know. All right.
Super. Any idea when they might be back, I guess?
No, they're looking for a possible downed airplane, so that's why.
Oh, really?
I have no clue when.
I see.
when they'll
Really?
be back or
Yeah.
anything.
Okay, thanks very
Yep.
much. Appreciate your help.
Yep, you have a
All
good
right.
day.
Take care.
And you take a look at the pictures. You know, when kids draw pictures of people, a lot of times they're kind of drawing pictures of their own family or themselves. And when they're drawing happy people, it's usually a clue that their family life is happy. Happy people don't kill themselves. I mean, that just don't fit at all.
But I do remember him being upset about it and said the gun was way too far away for it to have been suicide.
Yeah.
So that's about all I know.
And he was one of the first on the scene?
Apparently, yes. Now, he was either the first or he usually is the first because he has a record service and Whenever there's a call comes in for anything, he's there right there.
Actually, I didn't see the gun there. Okay.
Yeah.
And actually, I was with the ambulance when they come in.
I see, okay.
And there was a few other people ahead of me.
Oh, I see, okay. Yeah. So,
In fact, her husband was there before we were.
And then they heard of a shooting. It was supposed to be a suicide, but nobody believed it. And they couldn't believe that even a short time afterwards, they just closed the case. I mean, everybody had like a million questions, but nobody wanted to answer them.
I don't know. I wonder if they want to leave the heat to the new sheriff. Because I've been after the sheriff and I've been after Mike Roberts, and there are so many unanswered questions, and I feel that they know much more than they're telling me. And I don't understand why they don't let the people know. The people in this county all love those boys too, and everybody wonders what happened. And it's really wrong of them to hide the truth.
One was supposed to have shot the other one, then shot himself, then throw the gun out the car. Now, I don't know that much about guns, but usually when there's a gun going off, you're in shock. If you shoot your brother or somebody else, you're in shock. Then you don't shoot yourself, and then you don't have time to throw the gun outside the car.
After you're dead.
After you're dead. And then on top of that, when somebody is looking for you and supposed to know absolutely nothing about you, how is it that they know exactly the exact same spot to go look, but tell the family to stay here because they don't want you to see it? Now, if you don't know anything, why wouldn't the family be coming with you to look for your lost ones? Why would you tell the rest of the family, stay here, I'll go look?
And the kids had strong relationships with some friends at school who really miss them.
Ben Moore is like the only friend I had up here for like the 3 months I was up here before I moved back to Prairie Farm. And we were just good friends, and he's the only friend I had, so.
Really?
I was really shocked because I thought they would never do anything like that, and I believe they didn't do that.
I thought, even from when I was 10 years old, I didn't even think there was a chance that they had killed themselves. So I still don't feel that they would have done it to the date, so I know somebody must have done it to him.
And he was your best friend?
And he was my best friend. He's my only friend, actually.
My kids were upset. I even think I kept them home for the one day. They didn't know them that well. They wanted to go to the funeral. They were pretty shook up.
After the shooting, everyone was really shook up. And one of the main ones that a lot of people stuck by was he had killed his brother and then he shot himself. Well, why, like my mom had said, you're in shock, you're not going to go and shoot yourself right away. It's not possible to where there was never even that much hatred between the brothers to where they would do that. It doesn't add up, and they should open it up and investigate it.
I just know that they weren't capable of something like that. And they were really close, I'm sure of that. They were good brothers.
I don't think there's any way those two guys would have killed themselves. I think they were just more for fun, and I don't think they would have never found that to being fun, so I don't see why they would ever even thought of doing that. So I think it was definitely somebody did it to them.
You know, kids get frustrated and they vent, they yell, they scream, but they don't go offing themselves because they hate school.
And then I probably just sat home, I think, and cried for the rest of the day because I lost my best friend, and he's probably the only friend I had between anywhere. I wasn't really good at making friends back then.
It was just a kind of a general consensus, I think, that people really didn't believe it was suicide because, like they went to school, the kids went to school with some of my grandkids, and they didn't seem to be depressed or not feeling that badly about going to school. So I really don't know.
And I met her daughter, and all I can say is thank God they haven't affected her daughter, even though I do know for a fact that they're making her ex-husband take her daughter against her will to these things that she doesn't want to go to. I've met her several times, and she's a beautiful little girl, and I hope she stays that way. And I know it's because of her mom, not her dad.
Oh, I'm really concerned about Lisa, especially after I found what she had written in her diary. She had written in her diary things about how she was going to, wishes she could be able to kill everybody she didn't like, and how she would like to kill John, and how the birds would be eating his flesh that were dead, and all kinds of terrible stuff. And she never wrote anything like that before. And last but not least, she wrote how she was going to kill me, and she even had a picture of how she was going to kill me. She said, "This is Mom in a dress, and I shot her, see the hole," in a big picture, and that just made me feel horrible. Here I had already lost 2 sons, and now they want to get my daughter either to kill me or they want to kill her, and what kind of a deal is this? As I found all these things in her diary that showed she was a very angry little girl and who was taught the complete wrong principles of hate against anybody else that isn't a Jehovah's Witness, even her mother. Why should I have to be, put up with that, for her to have to keep going with him every meeting, when I can see how it's destroying her? Oh, I know where she's getting them. They're all right there, right in the watchtower. You're supposed to hate anybody that isn't a Jehovah's Witness, even if they're related to you, and you're not supposed to speak to them. And the judge gave me sole custody of her with the right to choose religion, but then he said it was okay for him to go to the meetings with when he had her on his time. And so now he takes her preaching and to meetings, and so she's got to hear a whole bunch of that awful fear stuff. And the Bible says there is no fear in love. Perfect love casts out fear. He who fears is not perfect in love. And that's how Lisa and I do believe, but I don't know how much longer this is going to go on. Am I going to have to move away to protect her from this terrible religion?
You can tell that they had a lot of anxiety about the religious aspect. And it was a very scary part of it. And they were continuing to go over it. They would just go over it and over it and over it. You know, repetition tends to breed the situation. Indoctrination of fear. And that's right. They say if you go over it enough times for emphasis. Yeah. Repetition for emphasis. That's what the word, and that's typically the method they use for that. And they're at the age where minds are kind of open and they can be scared fairly easy. But scared to death? Nah.
I think that she's slowly getting indoctrinated into that belief that everybody else is bad, and that goes as far even as her mother, whom I know she loves me very much. Who knows what can happen in the future? Like it might be even predicting. Is that how they want to get rid of me? Brainwashing her into killing me?
There was a court hearing, about, I guess, 7, 8 years old before the kid's death, where he had been charged for abusing the children. And those would be very interesting to look at, because we have a history of someone that has been abusing his, spouse all the way along.
My ma told me he used to be pretty rough with him, especially Robert. Sometimes he'd do the neck squeeze thing and just give you a real good neck squeeze, or kick you in the butt and throw you down on the floor and sit on you till you couldn't hardly breathe, and put his point across.
One of the things that was real interesting is Roberta was describing to me why she would go out in the wintertime and the cold weather, regardless of whatever, and help them out in the woods. I mean, you got these babies here, why aren't you, kind of taking care of them at home? And basically her answer to me, it indicated that he would take the oldest kids out in the woods with him, period, and if she wanted to make sure nothing happened to him, she'd better be out there working. So she bundles up this kid that's 2 or 3 years old, takes him out in the woods, and when they get cold, starts up the car and lets the car run, try to keep him warm while she's busy out there working. If she doesn't work fast enough, well, something might happen to the kids. So he had kind of a hold, over her and the kids. And of course, the older kids realized that if they didn't do their share, something could happen to mom. So we had everybody working to help each other. And this is a pretty lousy way to run a business. You can talk about family business all you want, but there's a real good clue here that we got a problem. And why this was never, investigated or brought out or checked out, I don't know.
He ended up whipping me with one of these plastic train track rail things. I got welts all over my arm, so I took off again.
The church saw her as polluting the kids' ability to remain Jehovah's Witnesses by training them to think on their own, to be independent. And when you start critically thinking and becoming independent, the last thing you're going to do is hurt yourself.
So the next in line was Robert that got a lot of abuse from him.
Look at the mindset of the people that are being converted. Almost always they've had a loss, whether it be a family member or financial, whatever. You can call them down on their luck. Okay? Imagine a situation, you're down on your luck. Things are not going well, you're kind of depressed. Now someone says, that's no problem. If you join us, you're going to get everything in the end. You're going to be the winner. Well, here's a chance to recoup all your losses. And it's a real mental, emotional boost. If you join us and become us, when all the rest are died violently, you're going to inherit everything they got. And you're one of the chosen ones. Now you've gone from being at the bottom of the barrel to being one of the chosen few that are going to get everything. And all you got to do is join and belong and come and help support the church. Well, gee, that's a small price to pay to be a winner.
Yeah.
God, what a sales deal. God, I got to sell a lot of stuff. But the bottom line is ultimately you give up everything about yourself. You give up your independent thinking. You give up your critical, your ability to critique things or whatever, and you blindly have to follow whatever the church says. And if they are all going to run off the end of a cliff, you'd better do it too, because that'll save you. And that's terrible. But it sure is effective.
Oh, yeah.
What a wonderful marketing. If I could sell some of my products like that, they'd lock me up so quick.
Yeah, really.
And yet you can do it in religion. Isn't it amazing?
Yeah.
Oh, jeez.
Most of the people don't believe that it was a suicide. And I think that I deserve to know the truth. Was it suicide or was it murder?
They feel they're going to get everything back in just a little while. They're going to be a winner soon. And that's the come on. That's the thing that wets the breath. It's like the first drink that an alcoholic has. Got to have that first drink and, everything's going to be better. And that's what that is. And that's that key point that turns them. And then all you got to do is put the carrot further and further and further away, just ahead of them, and they'll keep going. And once you've bitten or headed towards the carrot, you can't afford to go back, because everyone that seen you go that way, you're going to be shamed. So to keep from being shamed, you've got to stay with it. And once they got you, you can't afford to let go. Otherwise, you're going to be dumb. You've wasted your whole life.
That's right.
Isn't that terrible?
Yeah.
And those that do have a chemical addiction or the borderline people, they've got a home. And when they try to quit drinking, well, it's hard not to drink when all your friends are drinking, doing all this stuff. It's almost impossible to get away. And religion is kind of the same way. You're drinking from this future, this good stuff that's supposed to be coming just around the corner. And it's not there. It's the same game.
Wow.
Different day.
Many questions remain unanswered. Did the boys actually commit suicide? Is it possible that foul play was involved and they were murdered? If they did kill themselves, what would cause two young minds to think that they were better off dead? Is it possible that abuse made life too miserable to want to live? Did fear of Armageddon fear of not being worthy, or fear of their mother being destroyed by God contribute to them taking their own lives? Is it possible that some beliefs could damage young minds with fear to the point of committing the unthinkable? If they did kill themselves, who is responsible? Did images and teachings in their religious literature influence them to think and act as they did? Was the police investigation properly conducted and concluded? We contacted the boy's father, John Moore, for an interview, which he declined by referring us to the police. We contacted the police, and they never returned our calls. We contacted Roberta's lawyer, who was unavailable for comment. Sheriff Wayne Wersing no longer lives in the area. When he finished his term as sheriff, he apparently left town, never to be seen again. We contacted the local congregation of Jehovah's Witnesses, who declined to comment. One elder did say that some people did not believe it was suicide. Roberta is still seeking answers to these puzzles and contradictions. One day, she hopes that the death of her sons, Robert and Benjamin, will be explained, and if anyone is responsible, brought to justice. If her sons did commit suicide, were they driven to this unthinkable act by fear of Armageddon? The most important questions were never answered. Can beliefs and doctrine cause some individuals to become so depressed that death by suicide seems like the way out of displeasing God and their church? What about the children who learned these things? The evidence speaks for itself.
And I think that I deserve to know the truth. Was it suicide or was it murder?